What's up, folks? Welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It's 2 o'clock Central Texas time, and we're back. We're back with our diamond hands. Dude, what a great time to be alive. Everybody's crying. Everybody's so sad, and things are moving, and they're like, man, I want an Oompa Loompa, and I want them now. Folks, I have to say something at the top of all of this just to say thank you. And I'm going to share with you why I'm saying thank you before I get into the chat. This is a heartwarming thing for me to share with you. So, if you're on the Twitters, you know that I shared my daughter became the state champion in her tumbling, which is a part of cheer, at least in our school. And I just want to show you something. I'm going to share this screen with you. So, this is the video of her doing what got her the win. Okay, so I'm going to play this. You may have heard it. I'm yelling at the end of it. We may watch it a couple times because it's fun. But I want to make a point about this. One, I'm proud of my daughter, which is huge. That's a good thing. So let's just watch this real quick here. Yeah. All right, so this is a double whip. So whip, back handspring to full, 2 back handsprings. So that's a full twist there at the end, which is pretty cool. Anyway, my daughter has been working really hard for a long time doing all this stuff. So she's in acro and tumbling, and she's also on the cheer squad. And out of all these girls, she got the state championship, which is cool. But what's more important is this. Take a look at this. I'm going to zoom in on it. Besides the fact that there were 8,348 views so far, which I really appreciate, there are 71 comments. And when I go through all of these comments, you folks are the nicest people. I just can't believe this. I didn't have anyone, people came out of the woodwork to say nice things to my daughter. And you know what? Honestly, with all the trolls you normally see, you guys were so gracious, kind, complimentary, and it really made me really thankful because I was like, if you want to know who your real friends are, you post something about your family or whatever, and you guys are really genuine. And so I just I just wanted to say thanks to you because you guys it made me feel really good. I could share something there where you just never know what you can share and what people will say and troll you or whatever. And it was like all the good guys came out, and I got to show that to my daughter, and she was so encouraged by that. It made her feel good, and I felt good about, I didn't know, can you share anything about your family? And of course, I didn't want to have anything that had any detail or doxed my daughter, but thank you for doing that. You've kind of reminded me of how great this community is. Because, you're throwing this stuff out into the wild and you never know. So kudos to you, and thank you so much for your kindness. And I'm really proud of my daughter, which is probably pretty obvious. You're here. I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to be talking about Jamie Dimon, our new Boogeyman, today. Who knows what will happen on this stream, but it's good to see you. I've got a good sense of well-being today. I wonder how you're feeling. There's a lot going on, and it's so crazy how people are just absolutely destroying each other. And it's like, man, you talk about envy, right? This idea of you have something, grass is always greener on the other side. And I see this, in people. They're like, why is my token not going up? And so I figured, I got to come back and I got to remind you once again what this thing is all about and why we ultimately win. And it's not for the reasons that you think. Sam Kemp is number one. Just another arrogant elitist. Their time is coming. Well, you can't blame people who have amassed their resources through extraction to let go of it easily, right? So you'll do whatever you can. We're going to watch that video here in a minute and really see what we're up against. But I'm so thankful that JB Dimon came out and said this. And if you're living under a rock, you haven't heard this. So I know this isn't probably new news. This came out yesterday, but it's so worth talking about because I think that it's fuel for the fire for DeFi and for what we're doing. And it's a reminder to you that, hey, just because we're not an AI token Relax. It's gonna be okay. And actually, we're gonna win in the end here. CryptoPest says in 5 years there won't be any TradFi, only DeFi. Jamie Dimon is a Luddite and a self-preserving liar. Boy, whenever you can use the word Luddite, you're in a good position. Absolutely, CryptoPez. Thanks for sharing that. And it's so true. Crypto compassion. Let's go. Let's go. Agents of change. Mobius, what's going on? Thanks for your comments. For my daughter, you're always just a positive person. Appreciate that. Rich Liberation. Let's go. Francis Powell, Texan. Let's go. And then Anthony Munoz, right? Hope you're doing great. I'm doing great. And I hope you're doing great, Anthony Munoz. We're coming into the Christmas season, and it is a time we had Thanksgiving, and now it's just a reflection time. And I hope that you have, I hope that this is a good one for you. It's nice to have some things pumping. It's nice to know that, not all is lost, with everything that's going on in the world, right? They're trying to start another war, right? I think it's Argentina. No, no, let me think about this for just a second. Make sure you go. Venezuela and Guyana. This is the next place that we want to create tensions for the Biden administration, which we might get into later. And then David Lee, talk about a guy who knows how to share the love. What's up, my friend? Good to see you here. Than Win, what's up? A hand pink waving, facing reality. What's up, man? Good to see you. Rich Liberation. So many great people like Godfather J6 in the house. They are awesome, aren't they? They are awesome, as every father should be. Identity blocks. What's going on? Or I'm sorry, it's identity block. And I always use the S. I apologize for that. Good to see you. You're in the house. John May. What's up, John May? I see you out there, my friend. Great to see you. You made it. You made it. All right, folks. So let's look at this video. This is the Diamond Hand, Jamie Dimon himself. And it's the irony of all this, right? Right. Diamond handed. And here's the guy, JP Morgan's head honcho. So let's take a look at this video. And of course, this is an answer to Elizabeth Warren, totally set up here, right? And obviously no crypto people behind Jamie Dimon in this shot. All right, here we go. Jamie Dimon. All right. Let's play this.
Next, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon says the government should put a stop to crypto. In a Senate Banking Committee hearing on Wednesday, Senator Elizabeth Warren asked Dimon to explain why crypto is a, quote, attractive tool for terrorists, drug traffickers, and rogue nations. This is how he responded.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance. And that is a use case because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems have built up over many years, know your customers, sanctions, OFAC, they can get bypass all of that. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Jamie Dimon has.
If I was the government, I would close it down. Oh my gosh, you are the government, right? I mean, come on. Bought and paid for. And of course, Elizabeth Warren setting it up so clearly. Isn't this for the use for terrorism? Folks, you know what the number one use for terrorism is? I think it's gold and cash, right? How many times have we watched movies about Pablo Escobar, right? How is the drug trade trafficked? I mean, if you were to think of how much is actually done in crypto versus in cash, cash is the number one terrorist use. But it is amazing that the boogeyman, this new boogeyman, Jamie Dimon, right? He's kind of this, antagonist, if you will. We get another one. And it's nice to have this because it's nice to have something to point at to say, hey, here's the enemy. Somebody that wants to preserve their system. And I think what they don't see, or maybe he does see it, is you've got to team up with people like Elizabeth Warren to try to convince people that all crypto is. It's a bunch of bad guys, a bunch of soy boys like Sam Bankman-Fried who are just robbing people blind. And it's a bunch of terrorists and drug addicts and all these people who are doing bad stuff. Because it's inevitable, and especially with AI, which is a whole other topic, is we're going to see this entire system fall under its own weight. And we know that that's coming. And there's really nothing they can do about it. But it's like, well, if I was the government, I would shut it down. Well, Think of how much influence Jamie Dimon has, right? It's just like the folks from BlackRock as well. It's like these corporate interests. It's like, well, I'd shut it down. Well, they're trying to pave this way, and that's the ultimate goal because Elizabeth Warren is kind of doing their bidding as well, and protecting the system. And so, if you think that they're just going to go away quietly, you are sadly mistaken, my friends. Jamie Dimon just happens to be the spokesman of the day, but folks, you cannot take down DeFi. And that's really the point of this whole thing. So I'm really thankful that Jamie Dimon came out and said it out loud that way, right? And now we've got the banking aligned with Elizabeth Warren, right? And we got this narrative. But what's interesting to me is I've often said or always said that the cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is open. And it's funny. Now, if you would have said this maybe in 2014, 2013, you might have had an interesting case. But what's interesting is the dark web, the Silk Road, all of this stuff has been around for a long time, right? I remember in the 80s, movies around were about, remember Back to the Future, right? The Libyans had the plutonium for the 1.21 gigawatts, man. The trafficking of illegal stuff has happened for a long time. It's as if crypto was invented and boom, that's where, all of this stuff is. But what people fail to see is that the transparency of the blockchain is actually one of the beauties of it. It's just they don't like it instantaneously happening without them getting their cut. They are the ultimate middlemen, right? That's the thing. They don't want these systems outside of it. And so one of the things I'm going to share with you today is a solution that, hey, our team may build, but I thought about this for a second. I was like, you know what? I'm going to share this with you and I'm going to get your opinion on it. I'm going to crowdsource this idea because we should be solving some of the biggest problems, right? Shouldn't we do that in this pulse chain ecosystem? What are the big problems that we have? I had Ben Cage. We had the Uncaged yesterday with Ben Cage, and he was awesome. It was so great to have him on. But here's a guy who's been in the traditional financial world, and he sees the value of this ecosystem. He sees what Richard Hart's doing. He's in a lot of things, but he's a high profile guy who is basically saying, hey, I support this pulse chain ecosystem. So I want to share with you, one of the biggest problems that people have right now, and there's many of them, but one of those is fiat off ramps, right? It's one thing. It's pretty easy to buy crypto. We've got new ways obviously coming into the pulse chain, and we've got OX Coast with their fiat on and off ramp. But what's interesting, and it got me thinking, we do not have a peer-to-peer fiat off ramp. And so what I want you to do is put on your thinking caps, my friends, and I really want your feedback in the chat, right? So we're going to talk about a solution that has not been created, that could be created, that I think would be really powerful and valuable. Okay, so think about this right now. I went and we had lunch at the Chick-fil-A today, right? And so think about this. I'm just going to use this as an example. Buying a meal at Chick-fil-A. What did I use? I used a debit card to buy my Chick-fil-A today. Okay, so the means by which today all transactions, for the most part, that I do personally are happening is on a debit or a credit card, right? Swipe the card, and let's just make an assumption for the sake of this dialogue that we're about to have. Here's what's interesting. We know that there's this future where we could buy anything with crypto, and we know that's not here today. But it could be here today if we had this solution. So imagine a scenario in which there was a peer-to-peer fiat off-ramp. Now, of course, if you're somebody that's in Las Vegas, and I think this is probably a good use case versus Chick-fil-A, is that right now, if you've got Bitcoin or Ethereum and you're in Vegas, you can find somebody that will buy that. It's expensive for you to convert, but they'll give you cash. Now, those things are, there's not something that's, really well known, but there are places that'll do it in Vegas. But now think about a peer-to-peer option where literally you've got two different parties. One, a person who wants cash and another person who has cash. And let's say it's 5%, right? Some 7%, 10%. It's a lot, right? What you would end up doing is you would connect people. And here's the thing that's really interesting. Using the prepaid debit cards, and I don't mean like issuing a card and KYC. I mean the prepaid debit cards. And there's a number of those prepaid debit cards that you could go get at Walmart or you could go get at a retailer. and you can load those up with money, right? So anyone really can. Now, you'd be KYC'd on your wallet side, but imagine this scenario. If I said to you, you could buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything else at a 5 to 10% discount, would you do it? Well, heck yeah, you would. Well, look at pairing right now in crypto. In swaps or whatever, on exotic pairs, you might see a 1% pool. Well, what if you had a 5 or a 10% pool? Well, there's a group of people who would really love to be able to buy their Chick-fil-A, right? Buy your Chick-fil-A. In theory, if you had a peer-to-peer fiat off-ramp, right, and you had a means by which people could send, let's just use Ethereum or Ethereum-based things, you could send something to the contract, and there are people, right, that are liquidity providers. They're fiat off-ramp liquidity providers who are essentially saying, yeah, if you send me this ETH, and I'm going to get a 10% or 5 to 10% cut, which is a lot, but I'll provide you cash directly on your prepaid debit card. Interesting. Well, there's some, back end stuff, but I know that there's some fintech companies and there's some APIs that could be used. But think about that. Well, what is Uber? Hey, use your own car and provide somebody a ride. Well, in theory, if you're willing to pay the fee, which would be, big, but there's scenarios in which you absolutely have to have cash now. And imagine a scenario in a peer-to-peer scenario where you're just like, hey, and this literally becomes peer-to-peer banking, where literally I just go pick up a prepaid debit card. And now there are limits to how much money you can put on those. And there's a lot of technicalities to this, but this does not exist right now. And I'm going to tell you what, there are times when you need $1,000, period, end of sentence now, and you've got crypto. And that's, I think, a really interesting solution that enabling essentially a fiat off-ramp of liquidity providing that pays a significant amount. Because essentially what you're doing is you're picking up things at a discount. And of course, in the cycle that we're in right now, which is pre-bull run, you'd absolutely want to be able to pick up, Ethereum at a 5 to 10% discount. And I think that there's people all across the world that this would meet their solutions. Because what are you doing except using a DeFi contract and connecting people, and then of course releasing the crypto when the transaction's complete. So anyway, I just wanted to throw this out to you. There are solutions that we can come up with, and this is just kicking them around, right? This is, hey, I was at we could solve the problem. You can buy anything with crypto you want, provided that you're willing to pay the fee. But right now, that there are those kiosks, but most of the kiosks, the Bitcoin kiosks, you can only buy. You can't. It's not like it's going to dispense money to you. And so having a peer-to-peer solution like that would be fantastic. So anyway, the point of all of this is why Jamie Dimon and the government can't shut down crypto, right? This is the Hydra. You cut off one head, another one grows in its place. And the US is not the jurisdiction of the world. And thank God it's not. It's just not. And I'm so thankful for that. But folks, we've got ourselves, we got to remind ourselves the opportunity that we're sitting on. If you think about a prevailing wind, what is a prevailing wind? But it's the direction things are moving. And of course, throughout kind of history, there's been a prevailing wind, right? And that's progress, right? It's moving in a direction. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. Sometimes you got AI and it's going to be like parabolic. But there's a prevailing wind, and the prevailing wind in this world right now, it's becoming even more politically this way, is one of decentralization and one of anti-authoritarianism and one that is anti-globalism. And you're just seeing that wind pick up. Where do you think that's going? Well, one of the things I talk about a lot is Babylon burning in an hour. And I think we know this from Revelation 17, but people stand off from this thing and they're like, I used to buy and sell there. There were some really great things we did. I used to trade things and everything. And it collapses and it falls in an hour. That's what we're going to ultimately see. And what's really interesting is what's going to push it over the edge. There's a lot of factors that could be doing that. But I want to remind you what we're in here. You're thinking, well, I sacrificed for Pulse and Pulse X, and everybody's like all upset about all these things. And it's like, hold on a second. Let's really think about what this means. If you were just in some meme coin and it wasn't going up, I understand you got something to complain about because you wanted to, pump to the moon. But there's something so much more fundamental here. And it's the pain of like, well, IPFS on Chrome's not working. Okay, it'll work at some point in time. Are you just itching to sell? The point is, what is going to be the ecosystem of freedom and sovereignty? Where is there going to be a place, and where are people going to build that's not OFAC compliant, that's going to have these kind of solutions, that's going to have full decentralization, especially if this is what the government's plans are? You can't put this back in the box. You can't. It's impossible. And then I think about people like Elon Musk, who's telling people to like go F yourself. I mean, this is a guy who's got Starlink, which is kind of cool, right? You've poked that bear so many times, and he's like, no, and I just loved, if you saw that interview with it was a New York Times guy, and it was in front of all these advertisers, and they were trying to basically go, you're an anti-Semite. Come on, please tell us you are. And you went on this apology tour and all this stuff. And he made a really good case. He's like, I immediately apologized for that because I didn't want anyone to take it wrong. And he made obviously a clear case for that, but they weren't having it, right? This guy, was not having it. And he's like, come on. And I loved it. I won't play it in here because it's inappropriate, language, obviously, on Crypto Heartbeat. But what is so cool about it is here's Elon Musk, one of the richest guys in the world, who's basically saying, listen, you cannot blackmail me with money. And he's like, well, what happens if a boycott takes down Twitter? He goes, then you'll know that it was taken down by a boycott. And he's like, the judge will determine. He's like, what judge? He goes, Earth. The judge is Earth, meaning that the people of Earth are watching and seeing this. Case in point, I don't know if you saw this, but the president of Harvard, of MIT, and of University of Pennsylvania were in front of Congress, and they were addressing this issue of, it is unbelievable that these are these elite institutions that if you look at somebody or misuse a pronoun or mention something about somebody's weight or something and you're fat shaming them, you get like expelled, right? So these extreme microaggressions are literally considered like you are, harassing people and bullying people, right? But what the congressional people were asking was, you have supported basically the promotion of extermination of the Jews on your campus, this infantata stuff, right? And they addressed it with them. And I'm going to tell you, the world got to see what this whole elite hypocrisy is because they would not condemn it. They would not say it was against their rules. And it's amazing to me when you see this all playing itself out. One, what's happening? Majority of these big donors to Harvard, to MIT, and to University of Pennsylvania are Jewish. Jewish people don't appreciate when people promote eradicating them. Not a big fan of that. I think about that. It's like, what if people said, we want to eradicate the Texans? I probably wouldn't be a big fan of that. Surprise, surprise. And it's amazing to me, like that a generation goes by and people don't have a memory of this. I mentioned before that my mother's grandfather got, like when I was young, got remarried to a Jewish woman who had the tattoo on her wrist from the concentration camp as a girl. Like we'd literally see it on her wrist when I was a kid. And I'm like, this is nuts, or arm, wherever it was. But it's like we've completely forgotten that these things happen. And it's amazing to me that these, leaders of these schools, obviously, and they're lawyers, but the optics of it are so tone deaf that it's like insanity. But this is the stuff that fuels regular people that are just like, where is your sense? Where's your common sense? And it's really cool that people like these Gen Xers, right? Guys like, guys like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan are speaking their mind. There's a movie I saw recently. Again, it was on Netflix. It was called The Adjustment Bureau. Have you ever seen that movie? And in that, Matt Damon plays this senator, right? And he's, one of these senators who's, polling everything, right? And he gets to a point where he kind of cracks and he's speaking to this crowd and he says, this tie, we tested 57 different ties and this is the one tie that didn't upset people. He goes, do you know how much scuffing of your shoes is appropriate? Well, we tested that, and you don't want to have them too shiny or too scuffed. And what about rolling up your sleeves? Like, how far do you roll up your sleeves? All of these things were tested. And he basically was illustrating the point that what we're really desiring in this world is authenticity and people being real. Why? Because authenticity it's a picture of the truth, right? And what people don't realize is that in this world that they're always trying to customize and calculate all of these things, is we can see through it, right? It's phony. And we know it's phony, and we have distrust of things that are phony. But when somebody's real, and that's the whole Trump thing, that's this whole Javier Milei, this is the Gert Wilder thing. This is people like Joe Rogan going, this is ridiculous. This is Elon Musk saying, what? You're gonna blackmail me with money and go F yourself. I'm so thankful that there are people who are willing to stand up for that, because the presidents of Harvard and MIT and UPenn are not willing to do that. And it's like common sense is literally, it's gone. But I really truly believe that this is the strategy, right? This is ultimately the strategy. And, we could go down a tremendous rabbit hole about the transhumanists and what this is ultimately leading to. But folks, I want you to realize you don't have to protect this system. It's going to fail on its own. And Jamie Dimon and all these people that are in traditional finance are going to suffer from this. And if they don't, what they're going to do is they're going to have to adopt Bitcoin, right? And you see this with BlackRock and the ETFs and all this. You're going to have to embrace this because you have this insatiable desire for yield. You have to have growth. And the only place you're going to see growth is in crypto. And that's only going to push this thing that much further down the road. But you got to realize, I know you want to get rich and you want to, have life-changing wealth and you want to retire and you don't want to work. And frankly, I would say to you, you actually should be working. There's way, way more purpose in this life than leisure. Because here's the thing I hope for people. I hope you make every amount or twice as much money as you expected to, and you got big bags and, diamond hands, right? I hope that you just, you're flush. And then I hope you buy all the things you want and don't kill yourself in the process. And I hope you get that out of your system really fast, right? Get it out of your system and let's do something that's meaningful together. Because the thing that I'm so enamored by this community is the relationships that are being built, because that's really what is lasting and makes sense. It's when David Lee comes to my dad's funeral, right? It's not about like, oh, what's the price of Hex? It's nice when those things are there, and we're going to come into it when the timing is right. We're going to be patient. But in the meantime, how are we building? How are we supporting those who are building? How are we making this thing more attractive for people to join into? Because right now, it's like a beep show. Beep show. It's a shit show. Let's be honest about it, right? And, who wants to be a part of that stuff? And so leadership is so important. And so, you know what? Understand that the overarching narrative of this is that decentralization is inevitable. And think about AI, for example. We know that they're working towards general intelligence, AGI. And AGI is that point in which, AI gets to the point where it's smarter than any human on earth. And we saw this early days with, Watson beating the grand champion in chess. And then it happened in Go. And now we're in this scenario where we've got ChatGPT and we've got the new Gemini from Google. But it's going to get to the point where there's general, AI, and that's going to displace a lot of people and a lot of professional, smart people that in the past are used to being rich. You know who's going to go away? Well, a lot of lawyers, a lot of accountants, a lot of creative people. There's a lot of folks out there that are used to being fancy lads who are going to be out of a job. And that's not even to think about the things that will be with like long haul trucking. But that's much, much more, um, those jobs are going to take like machinery to put them out of business with robots. But there's some really practical things that this is going to take out of. I mean, you're going to have in medical care, you're going to have access to literally everything that has ever existed in the medical industry. I was watching an AI keynote from Google's new Gemini program, and it's amazing how it said we were able to get into this list of all of these journals and do this research that was once done by hand and put into a spreadsheet to update data. It said this reviewed 200,000 papers in 1 hour and produced the documentation that would have taken us months to do. And it's amazing that this is where it's at right now. Just imagine when it is general intelligence. And so there's kind of two camps of people. And I learned this recently from a very smart person, that there are those who are kind of the soft takeoff and the hard takeoff people. And in this AGI world, there's the fear that it becomes smarter than us and then it becomes super intelligent. And there's a group of people who say, you know what, we're going to get AGI. It's going to be general intelligence and it's going to be a useful tool. And we're going to kind of gradually move into the next decade of this wonderful tool. And then there's another group of people who are like, no, at 8 a.m. in the morning, they're going to announce AGI is here. And by 9 o'clock, ASI is here. And that is this artificial super intelligence. Now, does it take over? What does it do? Right? Who knows? I went through the whole Y2K thing. And if you're old enough to know Y2K, oh no, the numbers aren't going to match in the computer and everything's going to go down. And it didn't. But this is a whole new world that we're coming into. And this all corresponds. I mean, think about this. Crypto isn't fundamentally tied to AI, but to think that all of this change is happening at the same time, not only the adoption of AI tools, but the implications of what it can do. Folks, you know what? Higher education, education in general is literally going to be over. I mean, literally, if you send your kid to college in the next 10 years, it's going to be like, well, you decided to send them to camp for 4 years. And it's more of a rite of passage than it is learning, because the very nature of learning is going to change. And of course, you could have made a case for that with the internet, that you could search and find things. But now with AI and AGI, I mean, the things that are going to change in this world are so dramatic. And in fact, maybe even ultimately the money, because let me toss out a utopian idea to you that is possible. The number one thing that AI could do is it could affect energy. Okay, so let me make a case to you where everything changes very short order. We have the money changing, we've got AI, and now we have this whole disclosure of UFO stuff, right? What is at the backbone of the UFO thing? Energy. It is obvious to anyone who has looked at that phenomenon that there are crafts that are in the possession of the US government or others, or these military groups, that have metamaterials that have been designed at the angstrom level. Like literally, you are designing with isotopes of things we had never even possibly thought of. And so, of course, AI is going to be able to do that, right? What are the materials? How are they going to act? And that's just one side of it. But the other side of this is when you have craft that are operating outside of the known physics world, and you see that it's utilizing energy source that is not traditional, then it says to you, there is another energy source that's not solar. It's not based on lithium batteries. We know about the Zenic wave and what Mad Energy is doing with, wireless transmission from kind of the Tesla technology. But now throw out this idea that there's a whole new energy source that we're unaware of. Likely the US government knows about this. But here's the thing. We've got all this change happening, and they're probably like, hey, we don't want to have to go through the money changing. We don't want to have to go through the technology changing with AI and then go through the energy changing all at the same time. And it's all here, right? It's pretty obvious it's all here. But think about a future in which there's a box that sits in your garage and all the energy you need for anything is there. You don't need solar cells. You don't need batteries. You don't need anything. You just plug and play. And it literally sucks it from the 0-point energy field. Let's say that's what it is. But that's what we know about. And of course, what does it do? Because the system that we have is based on scarcity, right? It's about extracting value. And so this whole Richard Hart ecosystem and the money and everything, things are changing so much that in this interim step, decentralization is the way everything's going to go. The decentralization of energy, right? I think it's kind of funny. Everybody wants to meter everything and be a middleman, and it's going to be abundant. And it's going to change the very nature of money. I had a buddy say to me the other day, he's like, there's this, the reason that they're going to these asteroids is because there's many of them that are literally have quadrillions and quadrillions and quadrillions of amounts of gold and precious metals on them. You would change the very nature of gold, for example, if you were able to mine asteroids. There's so much that it's at our fingertips that's going to change everything that you're like, hold on a second. Jamie Dimon can't wave his diamond hand and shut down crypto. Why? Because it's one thing after another thing after another thing. And that's the thing that's really interesting about this future for us is that there's so much change coming. The question is, are you prepared for it? Because a lot of things are going to fail and burn in the process. And this is where, I'm not a prepper, but I've got some things prepared. Why? Because I have a lot of faith in human ingenuity, but there are going to be gaps, folks. And there's going to be a lot of displacement. And there's going to be a lot of things. And I think we're going to have to be rethinking about them. And, I think it's not a boomer's thing to decide. It's likely going to be ours to decide. And the question is, what are we going to embrace? And that's why Texas independence is so attractive, is that why not reboot the system while we're changing the money, while the technology is going to change everything? And let's think about what we want this thing to be about. This is the greatest time in human history to be alive. And I want you to just think beyond your big bags. I want you to think beyond just you having a bunch of, fiat currency. That's not what this thing is about. This is a wholesale change in the way we interact with each other. And the things that will really matter, the currency of the future, will actually be trust. Period. The truth, trust, will be the new currency of the new future. Relationships, it's where it's at, folks. Who do you trust and who can you trust? It's really interesting. And I think it ushers in a whole new renaissance that's really bizarre. And I hope it's not a dystopian one because people just annihilate each other. And that's the fear of ASI with the superintelligence. But I'm optimistic. But folks, this isn't all happening in the pulse chain crypto vacuum. So what can we do? What should we do? What are the solutions we can provide? I really encourage you. You may be not like really into AI. You need to be aware of what's going on. You really do. If you don't know what's going on with AI, pay attention. And it's happening really, really quickly. But as soon as the morning you wake up and AGI has officially been announced, it's over. It's over. And they are racing. I mean, governments and, big companies, this is the plan. And, I hope it's not something that literally takes us all out, but I hope that it is something that literally ushers in this new abundance. Now, to shift gears on you and to get kind of, abstract and biblical on you, here's another thought. We know that it says that there is a mark of the beast, right? And that, what's the beast? The 666 thing, right? The number of his name. And if you think about this, what is this thing that keeps you from buying and selling, right? And there's a lot of speculation around that. When I was a kid, I didn't think, oh, that could come. Well, yeah, it could come, right? CBDCs and social credit scores and all that kind of stuff. The authoritarian hand could be there. Well, we're seeing evidence of it already. So the question is, are you prepared to push back? I think this community is, but are you understanding that you do play a really big role in what the future looks like, especially if we're going to reboot the system in Texas or wherever, right? And that you understanding the benefits of the decentralization, you understanding the benefits of where your rights come from, right? They don't come from the state. And the systems that we're going to be looking at can usher in a new season of abundance, right? A new renaissance, if you will. And the question is, there are going to be people that are displaced. And what do you do? What are the right systems for that, right? The government wants to control things. Jamie Dimon wants everything to come through JP Morgan Chase. He wants to be the ultimate middleman and he wants to hand out the stuff. But that's the thing. We're the sovereign people. It's our labor that they steal. We got an opportunity to take it back, folks. Right? This potentially could usher in one of the most amazing transfers that you've ever seen in your lifetime. But these folks don't think that the current power centers, I think those that are aligned with evil forces, are not going to fight back. They are. I've read the book. I know how it finishes. We win in the end, ultimately. It's messy. But I can see this moment literally. What do they say? The Antichrist stands in the temple and declares himself God. You know what they're calling AGI and ASI? They're calling it digital God. And isn't it interesting that we're trying to build something that has super intelligence and knows all? Hey, that sounds like omniscient. And we want something that we can interface with or interact with, and we can access all of human knowledge. You know what's really fascinating? ASI already exists here right now. It's called God, right? I talk about it on every Friday. Jesus is alive and he speaks. The ultimate in super intelligence, and not artificial, but real intelligence. And the question is, how are we going to take these tools and animate them for good? Because the tool in and of itself is neutral. Now, you could say, well, it becomes sentient. Well, it's what's interesting is what is the data inputs? And the question is, how are you going to be when you're in leadership of 5 cities or 10 cities or state or a nation? How are you going to lead? And I think one of the things that I want to impress upon you, it's not just the systems of decentralization. It's about your nature and character. Who are you? And so I think one of the things that's great about you guys commenting on my daughter's stuff is the fact that you're showing your nature and your character, one of support and encouragement and positivity. And I really appreciate that. I really do. And it's one of the reasons that when the price is going down and people are belly aching, that I have to remind myself there's a lot more value here than just number go up. I love when it does. I'd be happy to have extra. I'd love to be able to call David Lee and go, David Lee, man, you're another rich guy I can play with. This is fun. Hey, David Lee, come out and play. But more importantly, there's so many people right now that have an abundance. They have a lot of resources and they don't have any friends. Life is more than just making money, folks, but we can do it both. We can have this abundance, but it's about considering others in addition to ourselves. And that's the point of all of this stuff. Be thoughtful and consider others in addition to yourself. And before you push send on that tweet, think about what the impact of it's going to be. Are you picking fights because you are a sad person? Right? A lot of people are. I apologize for all those beeps there. It's funny. I get on a stream. My wife is like, bam, let's text. So thanks for joining the Pulse today. It is great to be in community with you. It's great to see, for me, it's exciting, the uncertainty of it. You know, it's a challenge for others though. And I recognize that, right? The people that are very traditional and they're like, hey, I don't want things to change. Well, they are going to. And the question is, are you prepared for those? And I think that it's way better to do that in community with other people, right? Because we're essentially crowdsourcing our solutions and support. And that's one of the cool things about it is like, hey, that's what this, Shangri-La of Hexaco is. It's this idea of a place where good people can go. Folks, consequential times, and you matter. You're not the descendant of a monkey. There's purpose in your life, and who you are and your nature and character is important because it's how you animate the tools. So let's animate the tools of this blockchain, of AI, of governance in a way that reflects the goodness that's in us, not the evil. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. And tomorrow we're on with Steve Staggs for episode 31. Take care of yourself. Be good to each other. And do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.